Pranams to all of you. So this is part 2 of the video on Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. So in the first video, we saw Ramana Bhagavan's birth in Tiruchuri, his childhood, his stay in his uncle's house, paternal uncle's house in Madurai, where one July, sometime during July, the month of July 1896, he goes through a very deep experience of death and awakens. And maybe about a month or so after that, because of the enormous changes happening within him and around him, he leaves Madurai and reaches Tiruvannamalai on the 1st of September 1896, 3 days after leaving home from Madurai. Now, after he reached Tiruvannamalai, passing through areas like Kirur, Arayani, Nallur and so on, finally he reaches Tiruvannamalai and straight goes to the Arunachaleshwara temple. As soon as young Venkataraman reached the temple of Arunachaleshwara, he ran inside the temple with throbbing heart. And there was nobody around. The temple doors were widely open, not a soul around. Nobody was there. He ran towards the sanctum sanctorum of the Lord, rushed towards the Shivalinga, Arunachala Shiva Linga, embraced the Linga, overflowing with emotion and tears flowing down his eyes, overfilled with joy. And that burning sensation which was all over his body after the death experience in Madurai simply left his body and merged with the deity, with the Shivalinga. In fact, these words later on, much later on, Ramana Bhagavan himself told this is exactly what happened. As soon as he reached the temple, he ran towards the sanctum sanctorum and embraced the Shivalinga. And this is what happened. He then walks out of the temple, goes to the temple tank, Iron temple tank, that's how it is called. He goes there and there were a lot of barbers, haircutters sitting there around. So as he was going, he heard a voice, "Swami, can we shave your head?" And taking that as a command from Ishvara, he goes to this barber who shaves his head completely. And you know what he does? He removes all his clothes, tears a piece of cloth from his shirt, ties that as a langoti, as a lion cloth, and throws the rest of his clothes into the tank. And whatever money he had, a little bit of money, less than about 2 or 3 rupees, and the sweetmeats that was given by the Bhagavata's wife, the previous day, that also he had. He threw all that into the tank and started walking away. After the, shave of his head, that thought that he should take bath never occurred to him. Look how, destiny works. right at that moment, when Venkataraman was walking away, there was a downpour. Only in that spot, rain falling down. It drenched Venkataraman fully. And it's as if the Lord gave him a bath. And then he goes there, goes to the temple. There is a place called the 1,000-Pillared Hall. He goes there, selects a corner and sits there, instantaneously absorbed. And a few days passes by, and the boys in and around the temple, the mischievous boys, the local urchins, they saw Venkataraman sitting there, idle, lazy, according to them. These boys thought they will, do some pranks on Venkataraman, because they didn't know who this boy was, where he came from, what he's doing, nothing. All that they saw was this boy sitting there. And they thought he's lazy and ran away from home. Let us disturb him. And they took some stones and pot, pels and so on, and started throwing at Venkataraman. And poor Venkataraman would get up slowly and move to another place. There also these boys will come, disturb him. And he went to a place, where the temple vehicles were kept. He went there, sat there. There also these boys would come, throw stones at him, disturb him, And finally, he found that there is a place, it's even today called Padala Lingam, an underground temple where there is a Shivalinga installed underground, much below the floor level. So Venkataraman, and it was in a very, very bad condition. There was no worship going on, dilapidated, all debris around, only this pathway into that, dungeon place. So Venkataraman slowly went inside and sat inside the Padala Lingam. Can you imagine, dark and dungeon place? He went there and sat down just to avoid these boys throwing him with stones and so on. And there also these boys didn't leave him alone. And he was sitting in the southeast corner of that Padala Lingam. So whatever stones and things that these boys were throwing, it did not directly hit him, thank God, because he was sitting in a corner. And one day, a localite there called Venkatachala Mudaliyar, he saw these boys, 8 or 9 or 10 of them throwing stones through the entrance of the Padala Lingam down below. And to his surprise, he saw Seshadri Swamigal blocking that entrance. His legs and arms stretched out, and all the stones that were thrown by these urchins were falling on Seshadri Swami's back and his body. Venkatachala Mudali was so shocked, stunned, angry. He ran towards the temple entrance, chased all these urchins away, and looked what was going on. Seshadri Swamigal was standing there blocking the entrance. And Venkatachala Mudali, Seshadri Swamigal was another great Mahatma, living in that area. In fact, Seshadri Swamigal had come many years before young Venkataraman had, came to Tiruvannamalai. Venkatachala Mudali, asked Seshadri Swamigal, Swamiji, did the boys hurt you? Did those stones fall on you, hurt you? And immediately Seshadri Swamigal turned around and looked at Venkatachala Mudali and said, No. There is Chinnaswamy sitting. There is Chinnaswamy sitting inside. 2-3 times he said that. Chinnaswamy. And since then, Venkataraman, in that area was called Chinnaswamy. So Seshadri Swamigal was actually protecting young Venkataraman from the stone throw of all these boys. And as soon as Seshadri Swamigal said this, he ran away. And Venkataraman, he couldn't believe anybody could even go inside that place. He slowly, went down the steps near the Padaralingam. It was all dark. He couldn't see anything because he was coming from outside. And slowly his eyes accustomed to the darkness. He looked deeply, closely, and in a short while, he saw the shadow of someone sitting inside. All debris and rocks and stones lying around, And some more time of closely watching, Venkataraman found that there was a boy sitting there, absolutely like a rock, eyes closed, possibly in deep tapas. And you know what Venkataraman did? He rushed out, called a few other people, some sadhus who were there, called all of them, went down again and asked these, sannyasis and sadhus who were there around to lift that boy slowly, bring him out and to a safer place. And so these sadhus went inside, lifted this young, immobile, still Venkataraman out and brought him out of the Padalalingam temple and put him in one of those, near the pillar. And then only to their shock and sadness they noticed that from under the thighs of Venkataraman, blood was oozing, pus was oozing. Insects and termites and all those, insects there which were there in the Padaralingam were having a feast day from the thigh of Venkataraman, from the thighs of Venkataraman. He was not conscious of the body. He was so absorbed in that tremendous natural state of his, he was not conscious of the body at all. And these ants and termites biting him, he was not aware. And seeing his condition, Venkataraman and all the sadhus, did pranams to him and dare not disturb him, silently went away. So people found this young boy, nobody knew his name or whereabouts and all that. They only saw this boy sitting sometime in the 1,000-pillared hall, sometimes in the vehicle's room, sometimes there, here, And so it almost for about 2 years, the young Venkataraman spent his time in and around the temple. And some of the sadhus, realizing who this boy could be, no food, no water, all the time sitting like that, they tried to bring some, temple prasad, try to feed him, but nothing would go, and they would put the food in his mouth and, push it inside, realizing this boy must be a great, great yogi. And so, it was around that time that, people started slowly realizing that there was this boy, young boy, a yogi, a sannyasi, living all alone, absolutely absorbed in tapas. So they started calling him Chinnaswamy, as the name was given by Seshadri Swamigal. Many other people called him Chinna Seshadri Swamigal, Ramana Swamigal, right? So he spent days and nights. Sometimes, Sri Bhagavan would say, when he opens his eyes, it was daytime. Another time he opened his eyes, it was night. So he was not aware of the days and nights passing. He was so absorbed in that state. A lot of people remark and comment that Bhagavan was meditating, intense meditation he was doing. That's not true. Venkataraman was not meditating. He was, after that death experience of him that happened in Madurai, he became self-absorbed. He remained in his own natural, effulgent state, glorious state of his own self. And because that absorption was so deep and profound, there was no body consciousness. So Venkataraman was not doing anything. He was absorbed. What else could anybody do, whoever is in that state? If you and I, find ourselves in that state, maybe not in the near future, maybe after lives, maybe the same experience. The body is no more important. It's gone. In fact, in Venkataraman's case, it went away when the death experience came. It was just a shadow moving here and there. Right? And from here, slowly, Venkataraman, becomes a little more known to others, to people who come to the temple and so on. And these mischievous boys, because they were continuously, disturbing him and all that, Venkataraman wanted to go some other place. Right? That's when devotees started coming. One or two devotees who were observing Venkataraman came along and started to help. And then there was this person called Uttandi Nayinar, who was one of the first devotees of Venkataraman. Chinna Swami, Brahmana Swami, Chinna Seshadri. So seeing his condition, Uttandi Nayinar suggested to young Venkataraman, Swami, these boys will go on disturbing you wherever you sit, whether in the 1,000-pillared hall or in the banana grove or in the somewhere else. These boys will continuously disturb you. So please, there is another place called Gurumurtham, a small little temple very close by. We will go there, and you can stay there comfortably. Nobody will disturb you, and I will take care of you. And that's how Brahmana Swami, young Venkataraman agrees, and Venkataraman is led to Gurumurtham by Uttandi Nayinar. Later on, another devotee joins Uttandi Nayinar called Palani Swami. Palani Swami was already a great devotee of Ganapathy, and he was feeding the statue of Ganapathy, doing puja, in another place. And somebody suggested, hey, instead of doing puja to this idol, why don't you do puja and take care of a real Swami who's sitting in Tiruvannamalai, in the temple? Go. And Palani Swami, rushes to that place, and he discovers young Venkataraman sitting there. The moment his eyes fell on Venkataraman's body, he understood this is his guru. And come what may, he will take care of his guru. The bodily needs, whatever, full time. And that's how Palani Swami also comes along, and Venkataraman goes to Gurumurtham and stays there. So Palni Swami and Uttanina, they look after Venkataraman's bodily needs. Now and then, whatever prasad they get, they will force that into Venkataraman's mouth and push it in, right? And it was during sometime during the Gurumurtam period that Meenakshi Ammal, the full name I'm not very sure, and a lady came along, an old lady came along, and seeing the condition of Venkataraman, all dirty and matted hair and long grown nails, and since that day, when the rain poured down after his head shave in the Arunachaleshwara temple, he never had a bath. Who would think of a bath or food or anything, in that state? So Meenakshi Ammal thought that she would give him a nice bath, clean his body and everything. So she started preparing water, brought some oil from somewhere. He pulled, like a mother, pulled out young Venkataraman out, made him sit down, clean all his hair and body, everything, apply oil, and gave him a thorough bath. And Bhagavan later on would say, for the first time I felt so much of weight going away from my body, my hair, my head, and so on. After being in this place called Gurumurtam for about a little more than a year or so, Bhagavan moved to a nearby mango orchard. The owner invited this young Swami, asked him to come and stay in his mango grove, and he will take care of his bodily needs or whatever, and nobody will disturb him. So soon, young Venkataraman and Palniswami go to this mango grove and starts living there, stays there. And then he slowly moves to another temple, in the same area called Pavarakkundu temple. There he moves, and during the month of December of that year, somehow, people at home were searching all over the place, inquiring where did Venkataraman go and all that. Nobody could find. But finally, they heard that Venkataraman, somebody reported, a young boy fitting the description of Venkataraman, they saw somewhere in Tiruvannamalai, sitting like a yogi and all that. So that's when the mother, Mother Aragammal and Nagaswami, his brother, they come to this temple called Pavarakkundu and meet Ramana Bhagavan. And the moment mother sees the son, she's crying, sobbing, beating her chest. Oh my God, this is how I have to see you. But not a word from the young Swami. Not because of hard heart and all that. He was not in the normal state. And how much ever he requests, the mother, Venkataraman's mother requested, please come back, we will look after you. You can do your tapas or meditation there at home and all. Nothing would move. And looking at, the mothers crying and all that, some of the localites who were there, they told the Swami, please, your mother is crying so much. At least through writing, give her something, give her a message, tell her something. You need not talk, at least give in writing. And so, Swami wrote something, gave it to his mother. And you know what Venkataraman wrote? That which is destined to happen will happen. However much you try to avoid. And what is destined not to happen will not happen at all, how much ever you try. Knowing this, it is advisable to keep quiet and silent. Let that which created all this and made all this and is making all this to function, let that take care of everything. Be quiet. So seeing that, the mother felt a little comfortable and she goes back to her place along with Nagaswami. And then from Pavarakundru, he moves to other places. And in 1899, he moves to the hill, Arunachala hill. From the temple, the Gurumurtam and Mango Guru and all that, he slowly moves to the hill. There, he stays in caves like Sadguru Cave, Guhai Namasivaya Cave, and so many other places. And then when Venkataraman was about 19, 20 years old, he comes to a cave called Virupaksha Cave. That was an old, cave where once upon a time, centuries ago, a great yogi called Virupaksha Deva was staying in that cave. So now, because it's vacant, Ramana and his one or two attendants occupied that cave, Virupaksha Cave. And Virupaksha Cave, Ramana lives there for almost 17 years. 17 years in Virupaksha Cave. That's where more and more people come to know about him, hear about him, and they all flock towards him. But as usual, absolutely no talking, as absorbed as he was. And there is another devotee, somehow comes to know of this young Swami, and by then people had given him a name, Brahmana Swami. So there was one devotee called Gambiram Seshaya, who through writing asked several of his doubts and questions, and Ramana wrote all that. Slowly he was coming back to the normal, from that glorious heights. So he wrote down the replies to all his questions, and that became what is called a small booklet was published, the question answer from questions from Gambiram Seshaya and Ramana replying all that, and that was published as Self-Enquiry later on. And in 1902, when Bhagavan was about 22 years old, another devotee called Sivaprakasam Pillai again had questions and doubts, and what came out of that was another small booklet which was published later on called Who Am I? Teachings of Ramana Bhagavan. And then in 1905, when Bhagavan was 25 years old, he moves to another temple in the hill called Pachiyamman Kovil, where he stayed for more than about 6 to 7 months, because he was there because of a plague that was affecting people in Tiruvannamalai around that time. And then in 1907, when Ramana was almost 26, 27 years old, another turning point in his life. Not in his life, but in the lives of other people. Right? So, this great scholar, Vedantic scholar, Sanskrit scholar, amazing being called Kavya Ganta Ganapathy Muni comes to know of this Brahmana Swami and comes to meet this young Swami in Virupaksha Cave on November 18th, 1907. He had done all that he could do. Anybody could do. Japa, dhyana, reading shastras and what have you. and still lot of doubts. So he comes to this young Brahmana Swami and asks him, I have done whatever has to be done, but I am still in doubt. What is tapas? What is meditation really? What does it mean to do tapas? What is tapas? And Ramana, as usual, didn't answer immediately. After some moments of silence, Ramana, clearly looking at Ganapathy Munigal, said, if you chant a mantra, observe where the mantra comes from. And to be absorbed in that origin where the mantra starts is tapas. To find out where thought, thinking comes from, go to the source to find out the source of thinking, that is tapas. Hearing this reply of Ramana Bhagavan, Kavya Ganta Ganapathy Muni sat there right in front of Bhagavan and went into a deep state of absorption. After several hours being in that state, Ganapathy Muni comes down, so thrilled, so much of joy coming out, and with tears flowing down Ganapathy Muni's eyes. He got the answer, he got the direct experience from Bhagavan. And then asking the people nearby, his attendants, what is the name of this young boy? And they told him, Venkataraman. He's from a place called Tiruchuri near Madurai. Venkataraman is his name. And you know what Kavya Ganta Ganapathy Muni does? He takes a palm leaf or something to write, and he wrote, from today onwards, this young Swami, Brahmana Swami, will be called Ramana Maharshi. He shortened that word, Venkataraman, to Ramana. And because he's a great yogi, Maharshi. So from now onwards, he will be called Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. He wrote letters to all his disciples all around the country, talking about this young Swami and how he experienced all this. And now onwards, this young Swami will be called Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. So it was Kavya Ganta Ganapathy Muni who gave the name Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi to Ramana Bhagavan. (1978). That was when this great name, which spread across the world, influenced thousands and thousands and thousands of people, came about thanks to this great Kavya Ganta Ganapathy Muni. Right? So after his long stay in Virupaksha Cave, where a lot of devotees come, including the first Westerner to come to Sri Bhagavan, Humphreys, F.H. Humphreys. He's the first Westerner to have come to Bhagavan. Of course, deeply touched and moved by Bhagavan. And then, after 17 years in Virupaksha Cave, he moves to another place called Skandashramam. So, how did this Skandashramam come about? How long he was in Skandashramam? All that we will continue in our next video, part 3 of the same series on the great Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi. Right? Thank you. Pranam.